Gail, coming to you here from Galt's Landing, our completely off-grid homestead in Central Florida, where we produce all of the food, water, and energy. Well, technically speaking, we harvest the food, water, and energy that we need to thrive right from the land. And you might think that it's hard to do this. Nah, it's not at all. Not when you design it right, not when you set it up right. It's a lot harder not to do this. Right now, after we started developing this area about 28 months ago, we now can walk outside of our house anytime, and we have an epic amount of food all over the place. We have solar panels right here. We have some nicer kind of normal houses over there. We've got these used tiny homes, these shipping container houses. By the way, we have Airbnbs that are phenomenal. Check out galtslanding.farm. It's GALTS landing.farm. And so this is the landscape that we are helping people to create all over the world. And during today's show, I'm going to get directly into how we win this game, right? There's a bunch of different names for what's going on. This incredible situation where, well, let's just for fun, I just like to say good versus evil, right? Good, we'll call that good promotes life. It promotes community. It promotes integration. It promotes joy and abundance and service and all the things that we call good. Evil is just live backwards. It's death, right? One system is regenerative and sustainable, the good system, and evil is the other way. It's unsustainable, and all unsustainable systems fail. So we could talk about what's happening from multiple different perspectives. And this is where people get into fights, right? What's actually happening? Is climate change and overpopulation destroying the world? Or is a group of psychopaths, elite, so-called elite, who are the most suffering among us, quite frankly, destroying the world? Or has AI taken over? Or is this a biblical and divine situation of battle between good and evil? Okay, I know what I feel about that, but I want to get past that. I want to elevate the conversation because all of those things, all of those narratives are used to divide us, to polarize us, to create shame and humiliation and rage and pride and envy and all of these. We call them the the seven deadly sins, right? Envy, greed, lust, pride, wrath, sloth, rage, or whatever. Anyway, so when the system, this is a fact that I think everybody, and especially the Braveheart Nation, gets that the system, the Fox and CNN, the censorship on social media, it is now, especially on social media, censorship has become individualized, right? So everybody creates their own echo chamber by what they like and follow, and by how many seconds they watch particular so I'm up a bit there. That's weird. Usually it's very good signal here. Can you still hear me, Rafa? Am I still here? Okay. Okay, good. So apologies, everybody. Normally it's very good signal here, but lately, well, I think it's a mass censorship, but I might be wrong on that. But anyway, so today I'm going to take you through a step-by-step strategy that will lead to peace on earth. In general terms, right? We're humans, and contrast is the catalyst for change, for asking new questions, right? If we didn't have any contrast, if we didn't have any suffering, we would not experience the dark night of the soul. We would not ask new questions, right? When we win, we party. When we lose, we ponder, right? So let's embrace the suffering. And by embracing the suffering, we go right into the heart of the matter. And by then embracing it and owning it, and then asking new questions around that suffering, then we overcome the suffering, right? So, in fact, last week at this time, for those of you who've been on the show regularly, I was on my way to Trousdale Turner Correctional Facility in Tennessee. This is, at least as of lately, the most hardcore and maybe corrupt correctional facility, according to the news and according to the inmates, in the state of Tennessee. Right? And we went there with the help of Andre Norman and his incredible network. And we went in the prison to Echo, which is the toughest block or pod. We walked through a bunch of locked doors and we get into Echo, this echo chamber, right? And they opened up all the doors. And now we are surrounded by the hardest of the hardcore felons in one of the toughest prisons in the state of Tennessee. And they come down, I go up, and we're walking around and we're talking to, shaking hands with, and even hugging these incredible people. Now, the suffering and the trauma that they have experienced, well, we've all experienced trauma, all of us. And oftentimes it's systemic, government-induced trauma, right? If we didn't have the system that we have now in place that is supposed to lift us up and support us, but in truth, they are, well, they're the slave masters, then we wouldn't have the majority of this trauma in our society. So by the end of a long day, we were like 8 or 9 hours. I personally spoke with between 50 and 60 inmates in all of the different pods that we went to. And we tried to go to all of them. And then I gave a couple talks, and I left there with a new level of awareness. The awareness that these fellas simply want help. They said, we have nothing. We sit and look at each other in these boxes. They've turned off our TVs because we've had problems, and the problems come oftentimes from the system itself. And we need programs. We need to heal. We need to learn how to adapt and how to heal our own trauma, right? They might not use those words, but they were suffering, the most suffering among us in some cases. And it was so beautiful. I had tears in my eyes several times, and so did a lot of the inmates that we were talking with. And so in permaculture, which is the agricultural science that is demonstrated all around me here, it's a proven solution to cancer and diabetes and heart disease, to deforestation and mass extinction. It's a proven solution to end tyranny, because abundance defeats scarcity, and scarcity is a tool used to create fear, which then creates recruitment for war, right? So in permaculture, we learn to turn the problem into the solution by asking new questions, right? And we look at it as an energetic system. So how do we turn one of the biggest liabilities in our society, and that is the correctional system, the correctional industrial complex, right? The billion, trillion, whatever, it's a big number on how much money is spent. In fact, it costs about $50,000 per year to keep one inmate locked in prison. And I'm talking, folks, these are tiny little cells where, well, one inmate said, yeah, I wake up sometimes and my bunkmate is pooping next to my head. I mean, that's how it is. There's no walls in there. There's no closed bathrooms. Somebody's taking a dump right next to somebody else's head. That's just what you live with in these systems. They have had in that correctional facility hundreds of stabbings. In fact, the day after we were there, somebody got stabbed. They have had multiple rapes and murders all in the last couple years at the most. So how do we turn this liability on the balance sheet of society into an asset, right? That might be a big jump. You might think that doesn't even sound possible. How do you do that? Well, guess what, my friends? And this is where I would love for you to share this message. 60% of those incarcerated, and by the way, like I said, we started in the hardest and toughest block. Many of those people are lifers, and many of them will not get out of prison. So we help teach them how to live in prison and also be productive. How do you do that? I'm going to explain it in pretty significant detail here in a second. But 60% of them are nonviolent criminals. They were in there, maybe they grew up in the hood and they started selling drugs, right? To somebody who voluntarily wanted to buy drugs. Do I think drug sales are a good idea? Absolutely not. But is it right for somebody who is 18 years old to be locked up for 20, 30 years for getting caught for their third time selling cannabis or whatever? Because that's the only way out of the hood, according to their way of thinking, right? Is it right? Well, let's not even debate that, actually. Here's what is right. They are looking for another way. They want to find a way to accomplish their goals of simply being able to buy food, being able to live happy, joyful lives. That's what they want, just like you and I. We all want the same basic thing, to live a life of abundance, of joy, of service, and to be grateful and thankful and healthy and happy and to have families. And we all want the basic stuff that it's basically the same. So how do we transition this energy system? Here's exactly how we do it. We start by healing trauma, right? Dr. Wolf talks about this often. How do we start loving ourselves again, right? How do we focus on the good instead of the evil? How do we lift our spirits? I've done several shows. It starts in the heart and in the stomach and in the mind, right? Freedom starts right here. And it starts with the knowing that we are more than this and that whatever may come, que sera, sera, will come. And so to have faith and courage and to live healthy, poison-free. The ultimate poison is fear. And then, of course, all the stuff that they put in our food, our water, our air, and our soil. So we must first help these inmates heal their trauma. Has this been done successfully before? You bet it has. A fellow named Dr. Michael Rice. We're on a show with him on our podcast, Seeds of Abundance, about 3 weeks ago. And he has created, and he's been in this world of healing inmates for like 4 or 5 decades. He's in his 70s, I believe. And his program resulted in a 90+% reduction in recidivism or reincarceration. That's incredible, right? Compared to what's normal, where inmates get out, they don't know what to do. They go back to their old homes. They go back to their own friends. They go back to their old ways. Sometimes they want to go back to prison because they can eat in prison, even if it's poisonous food, right? They have a place and they get it. They get their pecking order and they're used to it, right? So how do we get to the next level on that? Well, we start by bringing in these different trauma healing programs, and we help them heal their trauma. These programs work. At the same time as they're healing their trauma, we teach them the art and science of permaculture. The ethics are awesome. Earth care, people care, and voluntary share. Voluntary share means reinvesting our surplus into earth care and people care. It's a no-brainer, right? Because the more we do that, the more we create self-reliant, healthy communities around us, right? So the next step, and by the way, if these inmates also want to learn how to be mechanics, how to be leather workers, how to be woodworkers, how to be in construction, all of these other things that society needs, right? All of these things we will bring through Andre Norman's Second Chance University, right? Which is now the largest university in the world, and it's barely got its doors open, and it's already the biggest in the world, serving over 650,000 inmates who have already enrolled, right? So we heal their trauma. We teach them the ethics and principles of permaculture and these other things that they want to do. And then we graduate these inmates according to their own skill level and desire and ability to heal and follow the proper process. And we release them on early work release. We put ankle bracelets on. We do the logical types of things in logical ways that are secure. And we get them in teams of 3 from the prisons onto the farms. We already have hundreds of people who said, I've got an acre, I've got 10 acres, I've got 40 acres, I've got a farm right now, and I'm looking for this type of help. We bring them from incarcerated onto the farms. And this is what they want to do, by the way. This is a voluntary transition. Who wouldn't? I mean, are you kidding me, right? They go and they become the stewards of our new food supply chain. 20% of 650,000 is about 43,333. That's in teams of 3, right? So now you've got teams of 3 in 43,333 locations around the United States. What are they doing? They're creating farms like this one here, regenerative demonstration sites that are also nurseries, right? So this food forest behind me, we have already taken probably over 1,000 plants, probably way over 1,000 plants actually, out of this system. That's a baby. It's still a baby. It's only 28 months old. 28 months ago, there was nothing there but sand. Now it's a thriving ecosystem that produces massive amounts of habitat and diversity and life. And we've taken over 1,000 different plants, mostly sweet potatoes and yucca and bananas and moringa and all this. And we have put it out into the community around us. So now the community around us is also growing their own food. 43,000 plus of these nurseries that produce a massive surplus will change the world. It will create the foundation for a new, completely decentralized, regenerative food supply chain. When Henry Kissinger, back in 1974, as the head of the Council on Foreign Relations, a guy who has met with every U.S. president from the time he was 20 till the time he was in his 90s. Who gets to do that, right? Well, because the presidents are all controlled anyway. So he said back in 1974, if you want to control people, control what? The food supply. Right now, who controls the entire food supply? Well, when I say entire, I'm talking about the vast majority of food that we consume that on average comes from 1,500 miles away from our table. It used to come from a mile and a half away on average, right? Throughout the history of humanity. Now it comes from 1,500 miles away and it's loaded with poisons. Who controls that? An entity called BlackRock. Wow, what a name. BlackRock. My friends, BlackRock is not only the name, it is the intention. By their deeds, right? By their fruits, you shall know them. You ever see the show Moana? Right? When everything was turning black, they opened up the coconuts and it was black. It was all death. That's BlackRock. We must restore the heart of Tahiti, right? The heart of humanity, quite frankly. And that's what we're doing by demonstrating abundance. So now, how does this work? How do we go next level on this? We're putting together a business model right now that brings in the co-ops. Have you ever heard of a cooperative or a CSA, which means community supported agriculture? Right? So now remember, these inmates are currently an expense or a liability to society of $50,000 per year. So the resource, the money is already there. How do we reallocate that money? Well, very simple. We put them on the farm and we build one of these. This is a completely off-grid tiny home, right? I'll give you a quick peek inside. It's very simple. It's not cleaned up or nothing, but it's a beautiful little space, right? I can't really go in too much, but you see that? It's a nice little kitchen, nice little bedroom back there. We put two of these together at a cost that is very, very low, right? You could be probably less than $100,000 or definitely less than $150,000. And you've got your own solar system. You've got your own water catchment system. And you've got your own methane production system for cooking. That little thing right on the corner right there, that's our cook stove, right? And it's plumbed, it's hooked up by pipes to the toilet, and the methane from the toilet, and some people say gross, get over it. It's just methane, right? It's gas. So that goes to the cook stove. And now you've got an hour's worth of cooking a day right from your toilet. Now, we have these systems. These are not new. We don't have to design and develop new things. In fact, the design for this specific unit is being done right now by a friend named Thomas, who's a really genius in this and how to design, and he's an engineer, and then how to stand up these systems. So now these inmates go from living in a tiny block, about 8 by 8, and now they're living on a farm producing their own food, water, and energy right there on the farm. And they've got 10 acres to manage and to grow with. By the end of year 1, they're already producing a surplus. A surplus is they've got enough chickens and fish, and maybe they have some cows, or and then all the annuals and perennials. By the end of year 1, they're already producing enough for themselves to eat incredibly well. By the end of year 2, they're creating a massive surplus. By the end of year 3, the society around them, the community around them, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people are also growing food around them. By the end of year 4, they have created so much value. And my friends, this is not a hypothetical system. This has been done over and over again by organic farmers and people who follow these principles all over the world. So it's not some new thing. We're simply taking the things that already are proven to work, and we're putting them into a model that will change the world. So, and by the way, this keeps coming to my mind, so I'm going to share it. I just watched a video with Tom Bilyeu and Whitney Webb. And the fact that Tom and his show Impact Theory is putting this message out to people about what's actually happening and who's controlling it, Whitney Webb's been doing a great job on this for a long time, is profound. Because now this message of control and deep state and the criminality in our financial and government systems is reaching the masses. We are experiencing the apocalypse, the Great Awakening right now. This is the ascension of human consciousness, right? So if you have fear about it, embrace the fear, go into the fear and say, I don't need you anymore. I'm going to live with faith and courage, right? And I tell you what, it's the most freeing thing you could ever do, my friends. So anyway, please copy and paste this message and send it to Whitney Webb and Tom Bilyeu's, all their pages. Say, Tom, watch this, right? Because I would love, talk about impact. This is it. This is the idea whose time has come, stronger than all of the armies of the world. And Tom, let's do this. And Whitney Webb as well, right? Let's shine a light on the darkness. And then let's also shine a light on the solution to all of it, which is nature, God's design. However, whatever perspective that you come from, let's shine a light on simply taking the poisons out and using our resources wisely. And then we detail in how we bring, all right? So the co-ops, back to the co-ops and the community-supported agriculture. We are also, thanks to Kevin Fretz, one of our Earth Council members, bringing in the going to incentivize, inspire, and empower the churches to create their own co-ops, right? So all of a sudden we get kind of from the big picture down. In permaculture, we work from the patterns to the details. So we bring in, invite the churches pretty soon with the right post and the right kind of organization from leadership in the church. And we are aware that some of the top level leadership is radically corrupt, right? They're evil, but there are also a bunch of incredible people in the church, and we bring them in, and the individual pastors and mosques and synagogues, right? This is not about segregation. This is not about polarizing. This idea brings people together in such a beautiful way, where we can elevate above the divide and conquer narrative. And we can then, we don't need to fight about whose God is the best God, right? Some people got mad at me just now because I simply said or implied that maybe we can all work together. Let that go, my friends. That's a layer of scarcity. It's a layer of divide and conquer strategy, right? If you grew up on the other side of the world and you learned a different name for what I call God, right? I'm a Christian. That does not mean I hate any Muslim or any Jew or any Buddhist or any Taoist. Absolutely not. In fact, I believe that Christ would have loved all of them, right? And that's what I'm following, is that, not the fear-based narrative. So anyway, just a little off track, but I think it's relevant in today's world, as one of the biggest divide and conquer strategies will be around religion. So next level, we bring in these different groups that are already existing, and we say, hey, do you want to have for $100 a month, maybe $1,500 up front, right? We bring 100 to 150 people in, and then $100 a month. Do you want to invest in having your own food supply? And here's the model, right? Here's the farm, and here's what you'll get. You put in your fiat, right? Fiat is going down radically fast right now in value, right? In other words, the cost of energy and food is going up in value really fast. Organic, poison-free food is going up in value even faster. So, do you want to invest in true wealth? Do you want to invest in a local co-op that grows at least some of your own food? Of course you do. It's a no-brainer. The question you might have is, will it work? Well, that's where we bring in the different elements, and we show that this is working all over the place, like behind me, right? So now we bring in a form of blockchain. This is not my wheelhouse, but we have partners in this where we have a completely decentralized blockchain, 100%, where everybody has their own ledger. And when you invest the fiat, we call it composting the fiat, right? Fiat is the US dollar. and all the dollars around the world that are not backed by anything tangible. So it's shit and it's in rapid decay. We compost shit and we turn it into life. We invest that shit that's going down into something that's going up, and that is local regenerative food. So you get a group of people, 100 to 150 people. They all put in a little cash up front and whatever they can, right? Because it can, if they want to receive X amount of this particular blockchain, then they put in this much money. And then what do they get out of that? Well, then as the food grows in value, then you use that blockchain, that call it a crypto for lack of a better word. There's better ways, but this way it's directly related to your food supply chain. And it goes up in value. So now you put that money back in and you receive an abundance of food out of it. So you become basically an owner of your own food supply chain locally. And I mean, how important this is right now with the food supply chain being incredibly, poisoned and fragile. It's unsustainable, and all unsustainable systems fail. So we must create a new system that is regenerative, that will not only not fail, but it will expand in abundance and wealth and growth, right? So my question to you, is this of interest to you? Do you want to be part of the solution? Do you want to be the change? Do you want to support your local regenerative food supply chain while checking all of the other boxes, while serving your community, while serving these people who are looking to make a better way for themselves? And guess what, my friends? They are so motivated. They are so ready and desirous of this transition. So to stack on the stats about when people heal their trauma, the recidivism goes down 90+%. When you add on the gardening programs that have been proven in prisons, when inmates participate in these gardening programs, these pilot programs, the recidivism rate for them fell by 60 to 70%. Now you stack in the trauma healing and the permaculture classes, and we turn these big prisons with a lot of lawn and a lot of poisons into gardens. Well, we change the world. Who's in? Who wants to help us? Right? If you'd like to help us, go to foodforestabundance.com. It's foodforest with one R, abundance.com. Sign up for our newsletter. And we are going to be bringing layers and layers and layers of solutions, where basically we already have these entities called Freedom Farm Academies. That's what this is. It's a Freedom Farm Academy, where we are demonstrating freedom and the solutions to all of the world's biggest problems. So if you'd like to participate in this transition from slavery to freedom, then get a hold of us at your earliest convenience, and let's get started. And we'll work it out together. There's a lot of details that we need to work out locally with your help. So we're counting on you, and let's change the world. Love y'all. Have a great day, my friends.